Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Drummer Nation, the show where we talk about all things related to drums, drummers, and drumming with the best in the world. And today is no exception, but we're starting off on a sad note in that we lost one Aloysius Tyrone Foster. Let me say that again, Aloysius Tyrone Foster, a.k.a. Al Foster. And we're going to celebrate his life and his music today. And I have some help, as I always do. Say hello to my trusty co-host, Adam Nussbaum. How are you, sir?
Glad to be here
Circumstances
and
notwithstanding.
celebrate Mr. Foster.
Yeah, celebration, that's the key word. And we have
Yeah.
Mr. Billy Drummond. How are you, Billy?
Fine, thank you. Fine, thank you.
Thanks for doing the show again. And a surprise that these guys called for me. None other than Kenny Washington. How are you, sir?
How are you? Spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang.
Spang,
Great to see you.
spang-a-lang, baby. So you guys knew Al Foster. I only heard him play a couple of times. I rented drums once where he played my kit, and I heard him play with Miles in '81 at the Hollywood Bowl when he first came back from being sick. And Miles was at, what, 75 to 81, something like that. And I heard him with that band live. But I know you guys knew him, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me, who wants to start?
Well, Kenny's the native New Yorker. So,
Oh, yeah.
I guess that would be the place where he might have had the earliest exposure to Al.
He's also the best historian of us all, by
Well, we
good
know
measure.
he's a jazz maniac.
Absolutely. The jazz maniac.
That's it.
Absolutely.
So tell us,
Thank you.
Kenny, tell us about Al. How'd you meet him? How'd you know him?
Well, man, like I was barely legal when I was no, I wasn't legal yet. I must have been about 16 or 17. So that's when I started venturing out to the clubs. And so the first time I met him must have been at George Weins Club, Storyville. And I can't remember who was playing, but there was some kind of jam or something, and I remember playing on Al's set. Man, this is a long time ago. I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember who it was. And I remember him giving me lots of encouragement, saying, man, you know your ABCs, man, you know your ABCs. Because, he could hear that I had, of course, checked him out along with everybody else. So that's how we first met. And so now at this time, I'm talking about 1975, 1976. He was really starting to come out and play. You would see him all over the place. I mean, the ubiquitous Aloysius Foster. I mean, and at that time, there were three badasses on the scene. These cats, the three of them, they never took their drums home because they would go from club to club. Al Foster, Billy Hart, and Victor Lewis. Those three guys, man, they would go from club to club, from week to week, man. Because with Billy Hart, I used to help him with his drums sometime, or I might be playing in one of the clubs, and he would help me with his car, driving from one club, Sweet Basil, to Vanguard or whatever. Anyway,
Boomers.
huh?
Boomers.
Boomer, no, that's before me. Boomers was before me. I never got a chance to go to Boomers or Slugs or any of them places.
No.
Yeah, Boomers closed up just as I was coming out on the scene, man, or at least I
Wow.
wasn't going there. But anyway, so Al, at this point, he started to play quite a bit. I used to see him in the clubs, and so every time that I would see him or know he was playing somewhere, I would come out. I would come out to check him out because, man, I mean, he played so different from everyone else. I'd never heard anything quite like that. I already knew about the records, the Blue Mitchell records and what have you, but to see him live, and he was such a nice guy, man. I mean, he gave me so much encouragement, man. Every time that I would see him, we'd get in a conversation. Of course, his man was AT, Arthur Taylor. And so we would talk about Arthur Taylor and we would talk about all the drummers. But but he had studied all these different people, but he had his own sound, his own way of phrasing. And it was just something
Yeah.
to see him play the drums. And for me, the 70s, that late 70s period, that's peak Al Foster, man. I mean, and I would go to the club every night and get depressed. You know, you guys would get depressed. Well, actually, I would get depressed at all those guys, man, seeing them because I couldn't play half as good as any one of them at any time, you know. But Al would be one of these guys that would see him at the Vanguard. And I tell you something else, you know, he saved me from one of the the waitresses at the Vanguard. I'm not gonna mention any names, but those those waitresses, I hate to say this, man, but you know, they had manners like, you know, women in boat and roller derby. You know, they were nasty, man. With three E's on the end, take off the Y, man. You know. So anyway, now I didn't have any money, man. I'm just getting out here, man. I didn't have any money. So it used to cost $5 to get in the Vanguard. Remember that? $5 to get into the Vanguard. And so, you know, I would get in there, and of course, they started hassling you about buying a drink. So I don't drink. So I would get a Coke. So I would get a Coca-Cola and nurse that Coca-Cola the whole set. So when the set would end, then this one person, they'd be after me again. I came to see Al Foster. So this chick was hassling me big time. You know, you gotta buy another drink for the next set. You know, you can't stay here. You know, I mean, always hassling me. Al heard her, and Al says, he called her name and said, hey, come here for a minute. I want to talk to you. Come here. So then she came over to him, and I heard him say, hey man, don't hassle him. He's one of us. Don't hassle him. He's okay. And then then she gave me another Coca-Cola for free.
All
You know,
right.
so, but Al was just a sweet, very encouraging guy. He raised his two daughters on his own, and so
Four. Yeah,
four.
four daughters.
Oh, he had four daughters. Okay, and my situation wasn't the same as his, but for a while I raised my son on my own, and I just happened to mention that to him. And man, I mean, he was so encouraging. He said, "Man, you got to do this, man. You got to do this. It's very
Man
important."
up.
You know, he encouraged me. I mean, I was going to do it anyway, but I mean, it got hard, and I knew it was hard for him. And he was telling me about how, his hard times, and how he was, how he made it through. See, so for me, man, that was, at 25 years old, 26, 27, that was very encouraging. See, so it wasn't just the drumming. It was,
No.
life, man. He would talk to you about life. He was a beautiful cat, man.
He always had a
I
smile on
think
his face.
I think we can
Yeah,
all agree, all of us, Billy, you and myself, we all know how great he played. But he was such a sweet human being, and his humanity,
Absolutely.
encouragement, and generosity. I mean, that's what, how people make you feel.
yeah,
We all know how they sound. But he was a real mensch of the highest order. Everything you say, Kenny, I can agree with. He heard me when I was just a rookie. I played boomers a few times, and all those places, like you said, they were just doing the circuit. Vanguard, Sweet Basil, Fat Tuesday, Seventh Avenue. It was just those joints were always, those cats were always working. And Jabali, Billy Hart, he was very much the same way. And I,
yep,
I think we
Hmm.
can be so grateful for that encouragement. And now that we're all getting close to or are now in the third of life, we have to try to pay forward. And when I see the to quote that Joe Jones line, young talent, we have to try to encourage them, man, because we have to help to pass on what we were grateful to receive in our tribe. And
yeah,
yeah, Al, he was a one of the New York poppers for me. Mel Lewis was another one. If these cats dug you and saw your passion and sincerity, they were just so giving. And, as we're getting older and they're leaving the building, I just feel that spirit so strong, and that's never going away. We've been blessed by their presence, and I consider that we're all lucky to have had that. And
That's a great point.
Aloysius was delicious as a human being.
But once
And
you hear those cats, man, it affects you. You never forget it. You never unlearn what you got from that.
absolutely,
Absolutely. Yes,
absolutely.
sir. Yes, sir.
Because and the enthusiasm,
Billy, how
they
did
could see that your enthusiasm, and they would remember when they were the young guys, and they'd be sitting next to whoever, At Max, whoever, Art Blakey. We were fortunate; we got to get a taste of all that too. So,
Yeah.
I just consider now how fortunate and blessed we've been to have that, and Al, is incredible because, you'd hear him in New York, he'd be playing the, jazz, and, he'd absorbed all the masters. He was self taught, did it all, monkey see, monkey do, and put it through his own point of view. And as he got older, he was finding more of his own stuff. I think as we all hopefully get to do as we're assimilating everything. But you'd hear him then. Some people said they thought there was two Al Fosters, the guy that played with Miles with the backbeat, and the other cat that was playing the jazz, and it was the same guy. And whatever he played, it was so authentic, but with his own opinion and done so beautifully. Beautiful sound, great beat, a great feel. And yeah, man. Just these cats were treasures. I could keep going on. Billy. I'm sure you'll say the same thing.
What happened was I was a huge fan of his, beginning with, I guess the first couple of records I had of his was a Dexter Gordon record called Biting the
Biting the
Apple.
apple.
Yeah, Biting the Apple. And I also had a Miles Davis record called Agartha.
Right.
And once I realized that it was this, I had a suspicion it was the same guy, but what cemented it was the drums were basically tuned the same way on both of those records because he had a real low tuning of his drums on the Miles Davis record, which was just straight up like, I don't know what you call it. It wasn't fusion, it wasn't funk. It was some kind of like cosmic, like cosmic slop
Didn't it have
meets the
Pete Cozy on
jungle
it too?
meets
The Pete Cozy
Pete
was on it.
Yeah.
Cozy,
It
yeah,
was pretty.
Funny
It was pretty
Fortune.
aggressive. Yeah.
Oh man, it was relentless, and Al was just locking it up, man, just like, whoo, man. And he had that sound, and then on Biting the Apple, he had the same drum sound, but he's bebopping with Barry Harris and Dexter and Sam Jones playing great, and so that started my journey with him, and then subsequently I ended up buying uh, more records with him on it. One in particular that Adam and Washington both know that I love was a Dave Liebman record called Pendulum, and that record, and then so many others, Steve Kuhn, Life's Magic, and various other records. But what happened was the first time I met him, Joe Henderson came to where I was living at the time in Virginia, and and that was when he had just done that State of the Tenor thing that had just come out, and so I went up to Joe Henderson, introduced myself, and told him basically. Asking him about Al Foster, I'm asking Joe Henderson, tell me about Al Foster. So Joe was cool. Joe was, oh yeah, Right. Wow. Solid. Doing his doing his thing. So yeah, we're gonna be at the Vanguard in 2 months. You should come up and meet Al. So I had an opportunity to do that, and I went up to the Vanguard. I flew up to New York to the Vanguard, and I sat right behind Al, like right on that on that
That that
bench,
that little
right
booth
behind the
behind the
drums.
drummer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
Our
behind the
jazz corner of the world.
we've all sat there, man.
right. I was right there, man. I could do this and touch him.
Right.
And he was so sweet to me. Um, and he knew that Joe had told me to come up there. I guess Joe had told him that I was the country bumpkin that he invited to come up to. And so anyway, the weird thing about that was, well, a couple of weird things. First of all, sitting right next to me was Jocko Pastorius. And he was screaming, "Mr. Foster, Mr. Henderson," patting Al on the back. And I'm sitting there like, holy, you know, Jocko's sitting right here. Al, Joe Henderson, and then the weirdest thing was Al said, come on and sit in. Joe wants you to sit in. And I'm like, what? Are you crazy? And no, no, no. So stupidly, I did sit in. It was a complete disaster. But um, watching him play that night was my first time, of course, seeing him, and it was an epiphany for me to because it basically I had two other experiences prior to that: seeing Elvin Jones, seeing Tony Williams, and seeing Al Foster for the first time. Those three guys, when I saw them for the first time, it completely was a reboot for me in my quest to learning how to play the drums because it was just it kind of wiped the slate on what I had thought I knew about playing the drums, and I had to reevaluate everything. And Al did that because of his unique way of playing, his setup, his all of this was working, and the melodicism and the touch and the sound and the setup and the way he looked so hip. He was sitting down real low, and he had on like a long coat, and the coat was coming down to the floor, and he was in there like that, and that cymbal, oh man, and he was playing all traditional grip, just playing all these patterns and melodicism, and it just completely changed my view of playing the drums, and I could kind of relate to it because even though it was unbelievably I guess complex and technical, but it was the melodicism. I could kind of really relate to the melodicism of it, and so then I started coming up, and like Kenny and Adam both said, he was playing at the Vanguard. It seemed like every other week, Steve Kuhn, Bobby Hutcherson, Eddie Daniels, Tommy Flanagan. I mean, he was playing. He was playing every week, every other week at the Vanguard. It seemed. Plus, he was playing with McCoy and Herbie and Sonny Rock. He was just doing everything. So after all those times of coming up to visit with him and hang and watch him play, he said, "Man, you keep coming up here. You should just move up here." And so I, I did, based on his encouragement and Art Blakey's encouragement, who also encouraged me to move up here when I met him down in Washington D.C. But so Al is responsible for me moving to New York. And once I got here, he was very encouraging. I got to sub for him with Joe Henderson and a couple of gigs, and I ended up following him and Steve Kuhn's group, and and he was always very, 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 just like they say, he was just the sweetest guy, man, and always encouraging and always willing to share and talk and tell you about his trajectory. And it just, I mean, he was just great as a human being and as a drummer, of course, and as a musician. Just a sweet, sweet, sweet soul, man. And
Well, I have
I'll
a.
miss him, but I'm so glad I got a chance to be with him all those times at his house, at his apartment, and man, it just
Well, I have
and
a
He's
clip. I have a
named
clip
after
of.
the saint, Saint Aloysius. You know what I mean? Just
He's
that
a drumming
it
saint
was,
now. Yeah.
yeah.
I have a
yeah,
clip of him
yeah.
that hasn't been busted on the net, so maybe they'll let this fly too. Let's look a little of this. It's a drum solo.
Okay. Woo!
Oh,
That's it. That's it.
Fluidity.
Well, I hate to cut him off, but I don't know how much we can get away with showing. It's obviously fair use. We're discussing his playing. The first thing that pops out to me is the joyousness of his being at the kit. He just looks joyous, and I love seeing that in a musician. Not to mention the musicality and the phrasing and the technique. Man, he had mega chops, and he was self-taught.
Yeah.
yeah, but all the stuff what he's done, what he's doing, as you can hear in that solo and any of the other great things he did, he's coming out of Max Roach. You can
Yeah,
hear, you can hear, but what he's done is like he's changed it. He's changed those different rhythms around so many different ways. I mean, and he's made it his own. And like Billy, we were talking about this before. He's got this thing, man, that way his bigger than it. I'm still trying to figure out what is that? Is it a six stroke? I don't know what he's doing. And that thing around. It's unbelievable, man. I mean, and if you notice. There's no sticks hitting together and nothing, man, because that's hard to play to go around the drums. But that's because of the way he has the drums set up. That
yeah,
tom
yeah,
tom, I mean, he had some stuff. I mean, and he would change it around in different ways. I go see him one time, and the mounted tom tom would be all cocked to the side, and I'm looking like I have cross eyes.
What was interesting was seeing Al with his fluidity of motion, moving clockwise, counterclockwise, the way he was doing this, that reminded me of some of the stuff that Joe had taught me. And then hearing Al utilize this in such a musical manner, Cazares was always saying, well, we're playing the drum set and we're not just playing on the snare drum. We're not just doing that. You want to be able to have this fluidity to express yourself around the instrument and utilize all the different components. And, this was very much, he kind of notated a lot of things that, like, Max had done. And, these cats, they were just trying to help codify some of what that was. And we were fortunate, at least we got to see it live. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
was all
Sure.
before YouTube and all this other, where everybody's looking at the, dog and pony show now for 1 minute. But, you know, even if Al Foster never took a drum solo, he'd be working all the way. We don't work because we take drum solos. We work because we try to get inside what the music was. And Al had that sensitivity. I mean, to be able to play with Tommy Flanagan, then to go play with Nuke, then to go play with Dave Liebman, then to go play with Steve Kuhn, Herbie Hancock, that takes a great amount of sensitivity. And he just had that. And,
Well, the
it
first time I
was,
heard him was with Miles, and I wouldn't have. I mean, I didn't know he could swing. I didn't know any of this other stuff. I had to go figure that out and check him out. But you wouldn't have known that was the same drummer, like we talked about earlier.
yeah. First time I heard him was, I think, in the winter of '74, or like January or February, up in Boston at the at Paul's Mall with Miles. I walked in the room. There's like purple lights and smoke. Miles got the big sunglasses on. It's like you walked into an acid trip or something, and they're hitting it. Miles got the wah wah going. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And
That's what I meant. That's what I saw. Then later I've heard him. There's a great thing, Mr. Pastorius, on our later Miles album, where he
right.
swings his ass off, and Marcus Miller is walking, and it sounds like a different band, like a
Miles
different drummer.
wanted to swing. Al wanted to swing with Miles so bad, but that wasn't on the dance
It
card
was
at the
on that
time.
chart, man. Mr.
Well, that was
Pastorius.
the one time. That
Yeah.
was the one time.
Yep. 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 You know,
It was exciting, man.
and back what you're talking about this fluidity and this kind of, he's like almost like, like in a one of those, remember the Jetsons with the, they're riding in those things in this little bubble, he's like in one of those little Jetson cars, but that whole movement, and I know from asking him about that, he was influenced by a drummer, a little known drummer that's kind of has a legendary status, named Edgar Baitman from Philadelphia, and Al really liked Edgar Baitman, and because he used to talk about him a lot. And when I finally got a chance to see Edgar Baitman down in Camden, New Jersey, I see where that is, because Edgar had this same kind of thing. And there's one clip on YouTube of Edgar playing in Philadelphia where you see him, where you see that where Al got that whole kind of windshield wiper, George Jetson bubble thing that he's got going. You see that whole thing, and it's like, whoa! But Al, of course, did it his own way. But that's kind of where the influence of Bateman, I think, came in, combined with Al's melodicism from Max, and the way he hears the relationship of all the drums tonalities together, and then the patterns and the hands that he has, like what Washington was talking about, like just getting in and out of those sixes and then coming out of them to another idea is mind-boggling, because he could really play the snare drum, man. I mean, he could play that. He could really come out of that snare drum and go out and come back to it in a really unique, beautiful way. And so he really, for somebody that didn't read, from what he says, he didn't read, and so for somebody that didn't take lessons, he certainly figured out a way to combine what we think of as maybe rudiments. I don't know if he's thinking double paradiddle, paradiddle diddle, six
I
stroke
doubt it.
roll, but
Yeah.
whatever combination he's coming out of, it is remarkable, man, and clean as a whistle too. Like Washington
He
said,
puts
he's not. You don't hear him clicking, man. He's clean, going from here to here to back to here, and all. Oh my gosh, man!
This
Wow.
cat had ears, man. He really could hear. And,
Yeah.
I
You know,
think at the end of the day, the cats that play the best hear the best. They know
sure.
how to get
Yeah.
in the music. And,
Well, they always say listening is
Yeah,
more
but
important than playing.
yeah, but see, but the thing
Yeah.
about him is that I mean, look, he put some serious time into the snare drum. I don't care what he says. He put some
Yeah.
serious time into getting a snare drum and getting his hands together. There's no way in the world you can play with that. I don't care what he says. He is just a nice guy. See, he's gonna be very humble about all of this
Hmm.
stuff, man. But look, trust me, I'm at the snare. We're all in the snare drum every day, man. And it's not easy to play any of that stuff. I had some students, was a couple of guys at Juilliard that their choices they wanted to do Al Foster solos as transcriptions for their recital for their jury.
Mm.
So I said, okay, which one? So then they picked one of the records, the Sam Jones Visitation, where I think it's Del Sasser, I think, or one of them tunes on that record. And he's playing his solo. And so then the guy said, Professor Washington, do you know how he's doing this? I said, man, I don't know. I have no idea. And I had to slow it down. And the
Hmm.
hardest part about slowing, one thing is to slow it down, but these drums are already tuned down low anyway.
Right.
See, so now if you're going to slow it down, it really can sound like mishmash. So you can't really understand what's really happening. But I'm telling you, I broke down some of that stuff and I said, well, no, could it be this sticking? There's one of I said, well, did he start on his left or did he start on his right? To get back to the snare drum to play it. Did he start with to use it? He can't be going crosshand. But then with him, you never know. Because I used to see him all the time. He might do any. He might come out of any bag on your ass. Any bag, man. See, so you start. You know, times I saw him, you say, nah, that's not the way it is. No, no, no. Because you remember this time when he actually that it could be, and then so you ask him about it,
Ah.
and he said, it ain't nothing but doubles, man. It ain't man, you know all my stuff, man. I
What?
ain't playing nothing but doubles. I said, no, Al, it's a little bit more than doubles, man, but
That's like saying
but I just watch him, man.
that's like saying funk is nothing but
Unbelievable, man.
paradiddles. I'm sorry to talk over you.
Man,
sorry,
I mean,
excuse
this is
Cosmo.
That
Oh yeah,
Cosmo.
Cosmo's our mascot.
What was fascinating
Yeah, yeah.
was, people used to ask Al to do master classes and workshops, and he would
Right.
never do.
Yep.
He would never do them. He goes, man, I don't. I'm just. I. He was very self-effacing, and he was very self-conscious about the fact that he was self-taught. And I used to say, I try all the time. I'd say, Al, that's one of the great things about what you do.
It makes it more amazing.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, because it's just like, the way he heard things, the way he assimilated the different things, like the AT feel, Max's vocabulary, and, the fact that he brought the drum tuning way down instead of Max's typical high thing, put a different thing on it. It's like if you're going to steal from somebody, do something different with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, what's
Yeah.
that old
Yeah.
line? To steal from
Definitely.
one person plagiarism, but to steal from many is research. And mix and match stuff. I know Al, one of his favorite musicians was Sonny Rollins, because Sonny,
Yeah.
as an improviser, who's like that? You know what I mean? He's a one in a row. And you could see when Al was playing with Sonny, you could see that joy, man.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Man,
incredible.
man, Billy, man, how many times we was on him about coming up to Juilliard? He would
Yep.
never, because
Yep.
he was intimidated. He was intimidated. He said, well, no, man. Well, you guys read, man. I can't read, man. Who cares about that, man? Come on
That's
up, you
right.
know. He, man, as
Yeah.
much as we tried, me and Billy tried to get him. Said, man, listen, man, just do what you do. That's all you got. We're gonna have him for a drum class, your studio class. You know,
Right.
just do
Right.
what you do, man. Whatever, talk about whatever you want. You know, talk about the cats. Play, just play, man. Do no, man. I don't want to come up there. You know, I can't read music. I said, so what, man?
You can
To play
play.
the
You
way
don't
you
have
play.
to
Oh, that
read.
that
I
humility is
trade in reading
refreshing,
music.
though.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I'll trade in playing reading music to play like that. I mean, because he's got, you know, because he could hear wet paint drying, man. When we were talking about that, but
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's
telling
right.
you, man, we tried and tried and tried, man. I mean, or he would say, "Oh, remember Billy, man, when we was up at Smoke? Yeah, man. I'm gonna come up. Yeah, cats, I'm gonna come up. Yeah, I'm gonna come up. But I would see him. Some, yeah, man, I'm still gonna come up. And then you would try to call him. I try to call him. You try to call him.
Right.
You know,
Right.
ghost,
I know. I
silent
know.
night,
I
man.
know.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
Washington.
which
Remember
you
that
know,
night? One night we were at the Vanguard, myself, you, and Jeff Williams, great drummer, and Al
yeah,
was playing. And then at the end of the night, we all ended up hanging, the four of us.
yeah,
And we asked Al to show us that thing, asked him to show us that thing. And so, because none of us could figure out what he was doing. And so he
right.
kind of showed it to us. And then we said, well, where did you get that from, man? And he said, I got it from a record called Dave Digs Disney. So I'm thinking,
Joe Morello.
did he get it from Joe Morello? But I got the record and I don't hear any of that. And I don't know if he got it from a phrase within the music. Maybe Paul Desmond played something, or he just the way he heard whatever he heard, and the
Right.
translation ended up being this crazy circular oval pattern going forward and backwards that is mind-boggling to hear him do it, and to hear him do it with so much clean execution on the drums tune like that
The
is
articulation was
unbelievable.
incredible. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And the sound, and between him and Dijonette, they're the only two guys that really made that Peisty sound creation dark ride sound so incredible, because that cymbal is like hitting on a piece of metal. I have one because of those two guys, and I can't play it. I mean, that cymbal is hard to play, man. But Al makes it sound so buttery and soft, because the cymbal is hard. You guys have all tried playing one of those, right?
Yeah.
Sound creation dark.
That's like
It's real.
that's like take that's like taking your sticks, man, and hitting on the wall, man. That's what,
That's right. But
man.
Al knew how to make that cymbal sound so beautiful, and Jack too. But they're different. But man, I mean, I still pull mine out sometimes on record dates and try to get there, but it never comes out right. And he kind of had that cymbal as his mainstay, I guess, since, well, Adam, you said you saw him on that Pendulum date, and he didn't have it yet, right?
No, he had that old broken A. It was cracked around the bell from like,
Oh yeah,
you know, 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. You could put your stick
right,
through that crack there. But that
right. I remember.
symbol, yeah. And actually, if you look at the back of the Sam Jones Visitation record, Al's kind of waving, and he's waving. There's a picture with the crash symbol with the 3 holes. I gave that symbol to Al to use because he said, "Man, something happened," and he goes, "I need a symbol." I go, "Take this, use this." And so, but then I saw it on the record because it had three like rivet holes on a diagonal, and Al's waving on it.
Wow, that's
Wait, I'm
great.
gonna find it. I'll
That's
show
great.
you. Hold on a second.
All
Well, we're
right, that's
talking
great.
about
I
the
have
great
that
Al
record. I got to look at
Foster.
that.
Yeah, I don't know that either. We're talking about the great Al Foster who recently passed. with some world-class drummers here who had the good fortune of hanging with him, getting to know him and learning from him, hearing him in New York all the time. What's Adam going to get? The album with him waving?
No, I want to get the actual symbol.
Oh, the symbol. Oh, okay. All right.
I think he's.
Yeah.
I think he still has it.
Wash, you had a
But
symbol. I took to Turkey. We never could reproduce it, man. We tried. Remember Hammer and I took
oh,
that
you
symbol?
mean? Did you mean?
Your symbol.
Oh, you mean? Yeah, the Mel Lewis symbol. Yeah,
Yeah.
That no,
It
they
was
don't
like a
make
50-year-old
it
crack
anymore.
symbol,
No.
man. And we tried. Hammer was with me. And we couldn't do it. We gave it the college try, though. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah. Well, plus all the we talk about this all the time. All the nicotine in that symbol that affects the metal. Listen. I don't know how long Mel Lewis had been playing the symbol before I got it. See, so that symbol, you figure I've been playing it since, I don't know, man. Let's say I've been playing that symbol since it must have been 1978.
Wow.
So I
That
don't
was
know
cracked.
how long. I never asked the record date he used it on or anything. So
Kenny,
that
did
record
you
is
did you
easily,
did you crack it, or was it cracked when you got it?
I cracked it because, it got cracked.
Wow.
It got
Wow.
cracked.
That's when we were
Yeah.
young and dumb and didn't know how to play a cymbal.
While you were gone, we were talking
I-
about him sending that symbol with me to Turkey. Oh, there's the picture. Look at that. Yeah, that's pretty
You see
obvious.
with
That's
the
your
three
symbol.
holes?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yeah. You wouldn't
then-
put those holes there except for a crack. There it is. How about
Ah,
that?
there it is.
How about
And
that?
this symbol's cracked too.
Yeah. I
Is
see
that
the
an
big
A
crack
or a
in-
K?
I see the big
No,
crack
it's
in
a
there.
whole K, baby.
Oh yeah, man. It's about to be a 14.
1423. I got a whole bunch of these broken pieces here, and they still record well. They record well.
You
and
said
they're good.
1423. Is that the gram weight on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a
And
20?
that's what the year. That's the year I got it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
All right, gentlemen. I appreciate all of you. And we've been talking about the great Al Foster, who has recently made his transition and left us a great legacy of music and kindness and inspiration. And I got three of the best in the world to help me out here.
Well, it's nice to see everybody,
you.
man.
Yeah. Nice
Better
to
to
see
be
all you
seen
guys,
and
man.
viewed.
Better be seen
That's
than
right.
viewed. Yeah.
Oh, one
That's
thing I
right.
want to say is on my show on KSDS, I am going to do either one or two parts, a 1 or 2 part tribute to Al. I just haven't gotten together all the records. I'm still listening to things to figure out. There's so much great stuff to play, man.
Right.
So that'll be on KSDS in San Diego on my show called Jazz Across America, which airs Eastern from 8 to 10 on Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. on Mondays. So it'll probably
Is it
be,
archived, Kenny?
probably by the
Can
time.
we?
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say.
Mm-hmm.
At KSDS, you go to jazz88.org and you scroll down programs to Jazz Across America, New York. My show's on Monday. And that show will be archived. So I don't know whenever I don't know when this is planned.
This
When
will be out pretty
Michael
quick.
is
But send me a link, Wash, and I'll put it in the show notes for everybody
Okay,
to
I'll
see.
do that.
Please go to that show because you'll dig it, man.
I don't know when this is planned.
This will be out pretty quick. But send me a link, Wash, and I'll put it in the show notes for everybody
Okay,
to
I'll
see.
do that.
Please go to that show because you'll dig it, man.
The one record
He made so many.
The one record I've been trying to find is that one that came out on Prestige with Illinois Jacket and Al Lucas and some of those
I have
cats.
I have that.
I got
What-
that
Yeah,
too.
I have that.
Something blues
Well, actually,
something or
there's just one. There must be. Wait a minute. I'll find it.
Of
He's
course,
got
he's got the
Of
archive.
course he does. He's got a few records. You'd be hard pressed to find a better historian for jazz music than Kenny Washington.
Oh man.
You know, Al told me a funny story about working with Illinois Jacquet. He said that when he was on the road with him, Illinois came to him and said, "Yeah, man, you know, you know, you're not playing your bass drum, and that's the biggest drum you have, and you're not playing it." So Al, yeah, I guess Illinois really wanted to hear Al play 4/4 on the bass drum
Oh, I
all
know
the
that
time.
album.
What's it called? Soul Explosion? I can't really see
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah, Soul
Yeah.
Explosion.
Okay.
I know that album. That's a great album.
Wow. So that was
Because
when
that's with a
60
lot
what?
of the old timers on there, right?
That was early in Al's career.
Yeah, it's 69. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Guys from the Basie Band, Joe Newman, Ernie Royal,
Right.
Matthew G, Frank Foster, Cecil Payne.
That's a hard
Some of the
swinging
guys
album,
from
man.
his band, too. That there's a Hank Jones record at the Vanguard with Eddie Gomez,
Right.
Yeah.
where he plays his tune, his position, Papa Joe. That's one of the best, man. Between
Yeah.
that record and that solo, and is it Neptune on
Bob Berg.
Bob Berg's record with Tom New Birth. That's the name of the record.
Okay.
You're right.
Man, I
Came
mean,
out on Xanadu, I think,
never.
or something.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
I'm gonna
right.
let you
It
guys
was
go.
on Xanadu, yeah.
Look in the show notes. I'll have everybody's websites and Kenny's show. And I thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And we all owe a debt of gratitude to one Mr. Al Foster.
Absolutely.
May
Thank you, Al.
he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Amen.
music.
All right,
He's
Thanks
up
for
guys.
the
there with
music.
Miles and Sly Stone and Joe and everybody.
All the cats. Yeah. That's what we all hope to be one day, right? I want a chair in that band or sitting in front of it at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I've earned the chair in it, but I can listen to it. All right,
They're going
gentlemen.
to
You
have
guys.
a ledger up there.
Yeah, right. All the clams I ever played will be held against me. And there have been a few. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate all of you, and we'll do it again soon. And Kenny, don't be a stranger. I want you back on the show, okay?
Okay, sure. Okay,
All right.
we'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Take
See
care.
you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all,
Ciao.
man.
Bye-bye.
Thank